Hi, good afternoon to all of you. Today, again, I am coming with a very significant topic, which is recently in news, that is the caste census. Now, when you look at why this topic is important in and where it can be asked in UPSC, in which paper in the general studies as well as in geography optional, let's understand first. When you talk about the caste is a very unique or the salient feature of the Indian society. Basically, when you move along the Indian subcontinent region, but you find that caste is a very important institution which we often found in every society in the Indian subcontinent. Now, when you look at the genesis of this term caste, the caste is derived from a Portuguese word that is casta. And what is the meaning of the casta is pure breed. Okay. So as I have said, it is one of the significant institution in the Indian society, and recently in news. Why it is in news, I will discuss in detail today. So let's have a look where this topic is important for the UPSC point of view. Let's understand first. When you look at in the general studies paper, first look at where it may be asked in general studies, which paper. Further, I will discuss about the optional, specifically the geography optional. So if you look at, it's very inclusive topic. There is probability that it can be asked in the paper one of the general studies in the social Indian societies section or the social issues, because as you people know, the paper one constitute the history, social issues as well as geography. So it may be asked in paper one, it may be asked in the Indian geography section. When you look at, there is a probability that the legal aspect or the constitutional aspect as well as other aspects of the caste census may be asked in the paper two also. The constitutional aspects may be asked in the Indian section of Indian constitution and polity. But it may be asked in the governance sections also. Why in the governance sections? Because the government now decided to do the caste census. So what will be the administrative imperative and the governance related to it? It may be arises there also. When you observe this census having socio-economic implications, so there may be question derived in the paper three also, specifically in reference to the socio-economic dimension. Socio-economic dimension of the caste census. So as I have said earlier that it's very inclusive topic, very significant. When you look at paper for the ethical dilemma, why the government now allowed after long period of time, why it was denied after the independence, the caste census, what is the reason behind that? You have to understand when we read about evolution of the census. So some ethical dilemma is there among the political fraternity. So a few questions maybe arises related to the ethical dilemma, or you- it may be a questions or the caste census become a question in the case studies. Case studies. So as I have said that this is the topic which is quite relevant for you. Okay, so it may be asked as a case studies, as I've said. So if you look at this topic is quite significant, not only in the pre but also in mains. Now, when you look at the geography optional here, it may be asked in specifically in the paper 2. In paper 2, basically in human geography part of India, in the section of population. So in population geography, this may be asked the caste census. So the candidate or aspirant having the geography optional, they have to cover this human geography section, the paper 2 Indian geography, where the population is a separate unit. So you have to cover this topic because there is a probability here. So here I had discussed why this topic is relevant, where it may be asked. There are different dimensions related to this topic. Today I will discuss detail about this census and the related dimensions. So now let's start with. As I have said that this word caste, when you look at the origin of this term caste first, I will discuss about this caste census. Okay, it derived from a Portuguese word casta. What is the meaning of the literal meaning of casta is the pure breed. And when you look at this caste, this institution which prevail in Indian society as well as in Indian subcontinent region. Indian subcontinent region. Very important feature. It's one of the salient feature. Indian society. And when you look at the social aspect of this term, what you observe that when you observe this caste system in India, there are two terms we read in history, in society or social issues. The two terms which is associated with it is one is the Varna system. The system originated during the Vedic. As you people know that the Varna means color. The literal meaning of the Varna means color. When you look at the Varna system, the society was divided into the Brahmin, the Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Shudras. There are four Varnas. When you go through the history, what you observe, the society was differentiated into four Varnas. And these Varnas earlier during the Vedic period were based on their works or the deeds. So earlier the Varna system is based on the deeds or the works. The Brahmin basically preach the Vedas, the Kshatriyas are the protector of their subjects. The Vaisyas do the Vaishya communities do the commercial, this Varnas group is community is doing the commercial works, and Sudras were the serves all these Varnas. But after the latter Vedic period, what we find that it is associated with the birth. So what is a very unique feature with the Varna system is the kinship later on. Now another term what we use is the caste or the jati, caste or the jati. Okay. So this, according to the sociologists, the historians, this Varna system later in the modern Indian society, when you look at the caste, there is a blending of this. But when you look at the modern Indian society, what you observe that the caste is more regional in character, more regional. Why more regional? Because when you move in India, right from the north to south and east to west, in different region there are different castes. Okay, so in the different region there are different castes. So basically, what you observe that at present, when you observe this caste system, it is more regional in nature. Okay, it's more regional in character. So basically we observe this. Now when you look at, okay, about this, but here I'm going to discuss about the caste census. My focus is about the caste census. So what is the feature is the kinship, and another feature of the caste is the endogamy. In India until now, only about 6 to 7% of the population, when you look at, are doing the intercaste marriages in the modern Indian society. Now the transformation is going on. Okay, so basically only this. So still the majority of the Indian population, what they're doing the intra-caste marriages. So endogamy is another feature of the caste. So now at present, why this caste census is in news and why there is imperative or need of this census? Looking at various factors. Why? Because when you look at historically in India, some castes are downtrodden, deprived of their rights. So for the better management and the policy making, as well as upliftment of that deprived section, there is a need of a caste census. That is one dimension. Another dimension I will discuss further. So let's have a look. First of all, now let's understand what is the census. As I have discussed what is caste, now understand what is census. Census means, or we can define the census as the total counting of what the individual of a particular geographical area in a particular or a specific time period, and not only the collecting or compilation of data, but also the analysis of the data. And after analysis, what the authority publish it, the demographic, economic and social data published by the government. So this is the census. So according to UN, I had mentioned here the definition given by the United Nations organization of the census. So what is census according to the UN? The total process of collecting, compiling, evaluating, analyzing, and publishing demographic, economic, and social data pertaining at a specific time to all persons in a country or in a well defined part of the country. Okay, so UN gave this definition in 19. Okay, So this is the definition here. What I have said, that it is a process in which the demographic compilation or the data of the individual of a particular geographical area done by authorities. Okay, they compile, collect, and analyze the data and later published in the public domain. So this is the census. Now, when you look at the, as I have said, it is a compilation of data. So what are the sources? On what basis we compile? So there are various sources. One is the census report. If you wanted a demographic structure of a particular area of the world, how you can get the information? How you can get the information about the demographic structure of China or US or say India in a particular geographic area in a given time period, as I have said, in a given time period. So the census is, when you look at the census is the spatial as well as temporal phenomena. Why spatial and temporal? Because the authority compile the data of individual of a particular space or area. So it is a spatial concept in a given time period. Say for example, in India, after every 10 years, the government compile the data. So we have the decennial census. So basically what I have said, the time is involved there. So it is a spatio-temporal concept. So in geography, basically we learn a spatio-temporal concept. So census is a spatio-temporal concept. Okay. Now, so if you wanted to observe a data or if you wanted to learn a demographic structure of a particular area in a given time period, what may be the sources? One of the important source is the census. Okay. And census, as I have said, defined as the collecting, compiling, evaluating, analyzing, publishing demographic, economic, and data. But apart from the census, another sources, through another sources, we can also get the important information about the demographic structure of a particular area. What are the other sources, okay, of the population data? Is the registers of population. What do you mean by register of population? Register of population involves a compulsory legal registration of certain vital elements. Say for example, as you know, at present in India, when the kids is going to the schools, they have to submit the birth certificate. So the birth certificate is a vital legal register of population through which what you registered the name of the candidate or a kid, newly born kid. Okay. So the government having the data. Now the government having data of the deaths, marriages, divorce, okay, and the adoption of a child. So these are also the data. These are also the data which is comes under register of population. Okay, which gives us an idea about the population. Okay. So in most of the country at present, when you look at in the modern time period, such registers have a far longer history than the national census, because there are so many countries of the world. When you look at the European nations, okay, the census is a modern phenomena, but when you look at, okay, the register of population is having the oldest or the ancient history. Now, when you look at the other specialized source of information, through other specialized sources, we can also get the information about the population. What this other specialized sources, for example, in UK, when you look at it, deals with the another aspect. Say, for example, in UK, the Registrar General's quarterly returns, okay, of the income tax, quarterly returns, reports of the departments of the health and the social security and employment, and the central statistical office, regional health authorities, and so on, all provide useful information about various specific aspects of population. So if the person is, so UK having another, I had given the ideas. So there are various sources through which we can get the data of a population of a particular area in a given time period. But what is the prominent source at present is the census. So census is vital. Okay. So here I had discussed that what are the different sources through which you can understand and get the ideas about a demographic structure of a particular nation. Now look at the evolutionary history of the census. Okay, at the global level as well as in India, we can compare. So as I have said time and again that census is a modern phenomenon. But since ancient time, in the different areas of the world, there was the people compiled or the authorities compiled what? The registers of the populations. Okay. Now, when you look at the evolutionary history in brief, okay, what you find that, as I have said, it's a recent time span. What you find, the census is a modern phenomena. Okay. So when you look at the earliest modern census, when you go through the history of the world, then what you find, a Scandinavian country, specifically when you look at in Sweden in 1748, and in Norway as well as in Denmark in 1769. Okay, the first organized census was done by the authority. By contrast, the initial, though imperfect, census of US was held in 17. So one of the first country in the modern era were the Scandinavian nation, that is the Sweden, Norway, Denmark, where the census begins. Later in US, the census held in the 79. Further, when you look at in the 1801, okay, the census held in the Britain. So Britain, when you look at, the Britain was not the first country, okay, who held the census. It, in the modern time period, it was the Scandinavian nation who started census. Now, when you look at in 1865, okay, the government of India has agreed upon the principles that general population census would be taken. And the first census was held in 1871, but it was not properly organized. Okay. So the principles was designed in 1865. Based on that, in 1871, the first census was taken. While the first complete census, because as I have said, in 1871, the census was not complete organized. But the first complete organized census was held in India during the British era in 1880. And since then, 1881, after every 10 years, the authorities conduct the census in India, okay, on uniform basis throughout the India. And since then, as I have said, the India has been conducted regularly after every 10 years, the census. Now, what was the interesting feature? Since 1881 till 1931, during the British time period, when the census was held, the British authorities also conducted simultaneously the caste census. So when the last caste census was done in India during the British era in the year 1931. So since 1881 till the 1931, there was a history of caste census during the British period. Try to understand it. It was stopped after independence. Our political leaders decided not to conduct the caste census, and we understand why the government has denied. What was the reason during that period of time? You have to understand the political scenario of the India. Okay, so you have to keep in mind that since the first complete census 1881 till 1931, during the British regime, okay, colonial period, the caste census done by the British authority. Okay, because they might uh, try to understand the caste structure and their significance, how the society has been bifurcated. They try to understand and they capitalize as also. When you go through the movement, what you find that in India also you find in history there is a caste movement. Okay, the depressed class people has, okay, started movement. So the caste is, as I have said, is a very important feature. Now let's understand. Okay, during this census, what are the information which has been collected? The information regarding the numbers of the individuals residing in a particular area, about their rural and urban distributions, how many people are living in a rural area as well as in urban, their sex, age composition, as well as literacy, religion, or occupation, as well as the migration is also compiled. The data related to all these are compiled. Okay, so now another important dimensions I would like to discuss here. When you look at, as I have said, between 1881 to 1931, during this colonial period, all caste enumerated and listed by the British. But after independence, okay, when the first census was conducted in the year 1951, the government now decided the caste should not be enumerated. And there is a political reason behind that. Probably the government must think about, excuse, it may be a social decisive factor. So it may be a politico-social cause. That's why the government decided to restrain over it. Okay, and ordered not to enumerate the caste in the 1951. And since then, it not enumerated. However, an exception was made for the scheduled caste and the scheduled tribes. Okay, it may be enumerated. So it have been enumerated since 1951. Now that's why it is always debatable since 1951. Except SC and ST, why the government restrained, okay, to count the other caste in it? What is the reason behind that? Okay, according to political analysts, it may be politico-social causes. Okay, because it may create a social divide within the society, and that's why the government has decided not to conduct. Okay, further, let's understand the other aspects. Okay, now why it is recently in news? Because the present government, okay, under the prime ministership of the Mr. Modi, their cabinet has decided to conduct the caste census. Okay, it was announced by the Information and Broadcasting Minister Ashwini Vaishnaw on the 30th April 2025, and various political issues has been raised after this announcement. Okay, so when you look at what the political party is saying is not important for UPSC point of view, but you have to understand their social imperative, their legal imperative, their constitutional aspect, as well as the moral imperative related to that. So my focus is what maybe the question arises to PSC. So why it is in news? Because recently the Union Cabinet has announced what to enumerate the caste in the next census. Okay, that is the 2021 census, which was okay postponed because of COVID-19 pandemic. Okay, now but the date is still not announced by the government. So let's wait for that. When the government has announced the date, for before the announcing the date, there are various issues the government has to redress. Okay, what are the issues which will be redressed? Okay, before conducting the caste census, I will discuss. But before moving to that, why the government is now decided to conduct the caste census? Why the caste census is required? So there are various dimensions. Okay, we can say about it. There may be a social imperative behind that, behind this announcement. There may be a legal imperative. There may be administrative imperative as well as the moral one. What are the social imperative behind why the caste census is required at present? So when you look at the social imperative, the first may be only about 5% of the Indian marriages were intercaste as of 2011-12. When you look at what it shows endogamy. As I have discussed during the introduction, that endogamy is one of the important feature of the caste. Okay, still the people are adhere, okay, with their own caste. Okay, now, so it is very important to understand the structure of the caste. Okay, the numeric structure. The use of the caste surname and the caste mark is still widespread in India. That is another aspect. Even when you look at the residential segregation, specifically in the rural area, when you look at, you might have heard the settlement. When you go through the rural settlement, what you find a pattern is in the Indian society. When you move to the rural settlement or in the Gramin area, okay, you find that the settlement pattern is based on the people aggregations. Okay, the population is aggregated based on the caste. So the residential segregation is also persist according to the caste. Okay, you can understand now in society how the caste system is entrenched. Okay, it is one of the significant institutions, as I have discussed earlier, and you can understand through this vital information. Even the choices of candidate for the elections and the ministers for the cabinet sometimes, when you look at, dictated to on the basis of caste consideration. Sometimes when you look at the political party at a state level or even at the union level, they appease a different caste. They choose the candidate and give the, okay, what the ticket based on the caste dynamics in a particular area. Sometimes you find in the Indian politics, the Indian politics is driven by the caste. So if the caste is so much so vital, why not the caste census? So caste census is required to understand, okay, the caste dynamics. Now, what is the legal imperative when you look at the constitutional philosophy of social justice? When you look at in our constitution, one of the important philosophy or the vital one is the social justice. Okay, because when you look at even the preamble, once you look at which kind of society we need, where the justice prevail. So when how it prevail, it include the reservations. Why the reservations has been okay given in the Indian context? To attain the social justice, okay, for the upliftment of the deprived sections. Historically those sections or those community deprived to their rights, okay, for that the government provide the reservations, okay. The very famous Indra Shani case, you can understand, okay, where the Supreme Court has justified the reservations, okay, for the socially and educationally backward class. Later, the economic criteria also added. Now there is a reservations 10% for the economically weaker sections also. Okay. So what is the reason behind? So okay. So electoral constituencies, education and public employment cannot be pursued effectively without detailed caste-wise data. So how we can achieve the social justice when we have the absolute caste-wise data? Then we can provide the reservation to a particular community which are in need. Because sometimes what you find in the modern time period, the caste which are not socially and educationally backward are gaining the advantage of reservation. Why? Because there is a lack of caste data. And there are various castes, those who are demanded the reservations. Maybe you have learned about the demand of reservation by the Jat community or the Patidar community. In every states, there are various communities, those who are demanding since long reservations, and they are claiming that they are deprived. Okay, so this caste data will give us a absolute as well as correct picture of their socio-economic structure, their numbers. Okay, so that is required. Even though the constitution uses the word class instead of caste, but the various ruling of the Supreme Court has added, okay, what they added? The caste as a relevant criterion or the sole criteria or the dominant criteria for defining a backward classes. So even when you look at the various cases of the Supreme Court, what they said that, because when you look at the article or 16, the class is mentioned, and according to 15.4 and 16.4, okay, what you find that deprived section get the reservation in education institution as well as in the public employment. But where the word the class has been mentioned, but when you look at the recent judgment of the various judgment of Catania of the cases of the Supreme Court, what the Supreme Court has reiterated, that caste become a dominant criteria. Okay, so and even the Supreme Court time and again asked about the caste census. Okay, so looking at that also, the caste census is required. Now, what is the administrative imperative? When you look at the caste data, is necessary to avoid wrongful inclusion of underserving castes and exclusion of deserving castes. Because as I have said, there are so many castes as present are taking advantage of the government policies as well as reservations despite their condition has improved. Okay, and some of the deserving caste are out of that benefits, so that is another challenge for the administrator. Okay, and that's why sometimes what we find that chaos in the society has been created. Okay, so to provide the safeguard to this that deserve caste, what is required? The caste census, so we can provide a what it is a corrective measures. You can understand it is a corrective measures. If we have the absolute data, on the basis of that we can reach on the deserved sections. Okay, what is another? It also needed for subcategorization of caste within a reserved category and to determine the income wealth criteria for the creamy layer also. Okay, because you might have heard there are several cases recently, okay, The people got the reservation on the basis of creamy layer by hiding their caste. Okay, so this caste census is gives us a pretty idea about that. So that's why required. What is the moral imperative behind the caste? Why the caste census required? Based on the moral imperative or moral principle. So the absence of detailed caste-wise data has helped a quotient of elite among upper caste and the dominant other backward classes to corner a disproportionate share of assets, incomes, and position. Okay, so what I have said that what is the moral imperative for the upliftment of the backward sections or deprived sections of the community? Again, morally the caste census is required because the major income and the asset is siphoned off by certain upper caste as well as some of the backward class which is evolved, their condition has been evolved over time, but these other backward class people are what they are taking advantage recurrently of reservation and the government. So what is the moral imperative? That morally it is required, ethically it is required to the caste census, okay, to reach the genuine, what to reach, okay, the policies, programs, schemes. Now, so I had discussed ki why the caste census is required at present scenario. But when you look at, analyze in 2010, okay, the government decided about the resolution has been passed in the parliament to conduct the caste census. But the then government in 2011 conducted only the survey, not the proper caste census, and the data won't revealed. Why? There are certain reason behind that, and the government data has not revealed, not come into the public domain. That 2011 caste survey is known as socio-economic caste census, SECC. So what I have said, in 2010 there was a resolution passed. Based on that, the government has decided to conduct a survey. That survey is called socio-economic caste census, which was conducted in 2011 along with the census. Okay, so parallelly it has been done, but outside the purview of the census. Okay, the census was conducted by the Home Ministry, Registrar General, and Census Commissioner, as you know. But this data was compiled by what? The Ministry of Rural and Urban Housing. So the socio and didn't mandate the caste disclosure. And this time caste will be enumerated in the second and final page of the census. This time in 20, when I started conducting the caste enumerated be the part of the caste, be the part of the census itself. Earlier this socio-economic caste census which was done outside the purview of the census. But right now the government has announced that this caste census which will be going to be held, okay, under the census itself. It is under the purview of the, okay. And the Union Home Minister, Mr. Shah, has stated that this decision will promote inclusion and pave new path for progress of the deprived. Okay. So what the Mr. Shah stated that, what the Home Minister stated that, it proved good or the beneficial for the deprived section. Okay. Now let's understand the another dimension of this census. When you look at this socio-economic caste census survey, okay, which was conducted, it was, as I have said, outside the purview of the census. It was conducted by the Ministry of the Rural Development as well as the Ministry of the Housing and Urban Poverty Alleviation. Okay, while the caste census right now is comes under the Ministry of Home Affairs, Registrar General, and the Census Commissioner of India. Okay, and it is this RG and CC is comes under the Ministry of Home Affairs. Okay. Now, when you look at the socio-economic caste census showed more than 46 lakhs different caste. Now, this much of the figure, okay, that not comes under the public domain. But according to this SECC, how many caste existed in India? 46 lakhs caste. How this blunder? First of all, several political expert criticizes that ki why such figures, because of the questionnaire that is prepared specifically by the Ministry of the Ruler and the Ministry of Housing and Urban Poverty Alleviation, because these people having no idea earlier to conduct the census. Always the Ministry of Home Affairs and this Registrar General and Census Commissioner conducted the census. Okay, and why this number? Because sometimes what you find that, say for example, if you take any community, say for example a commercial function done by the Baniya community, and among the Baniya there are various surnames. Okay, there are various surnames. Okay, taken by this, what they did, what the people write, the surnames or the subcategories of the caste, and that's why the umbrella term is not used in this survey, and that's why the number has increased. Okay, so because of the enumeration of the name surname among a particular community, the number has increased. So government has to, under in this census, the government has to take care of this thing and avoid the repetition. Okay, and government is thinking about that. Government has, okay, understanding and done the relations from this census, okay, where there is problem. Okay, so the government is able to identify. Now, as I have said that since 1881 till 1931, during the British regime, okay, the British, okay, did the caste census. So I had the data of the 1931 census of different states. Say for example, when you look at the Bombay province, the major community, here I had mentioned the largest community. The major community was Kunbi, okay, including the Maratha. And when you look at their population, 430,4861. In the United Province, during that period of time, the community which has been included is Chamar. Okay, their number is this. In Bihar and Odisha, the dominant community during that period of time are the Goalas, were the Goalas. Okay, when you look at in Bengal, the Kalberta, in Madras, the Brahmin, in Assam, the Caste, in Punjab, the Aran, the Vakaliga in the Mysore, Karnataka, the Mysore province was there. In the central province and Berar, the Mehra was the dominant community. Okay, in Hyderabad, the Jata, in the central India agency, the Jata were the dominant community. In Rajputana, the Brahmins, in Baroda, the Kanbi, and in the Jammu and Kashmir, the Rajput were the dominant community that period. Okay, in the northwestern frontier province, when you look at the Aurora, in the Kurg, Kudaga, in Ajmer and Marwara, the Gujar and the Sikkim, the Bhotias were the dominant community according to the 1930. And when you look at the 1931 census, the largest community across the British India were the Brahmins, then the Jata, then Rajput, then Kunbi, then Ahir, Teli, Goala, Kaist, Kurmi, and Kumhar. Okay, when you, this is the list according to provinces. This is the list at all India basis during that period of time. All India means the British occupied region I am talking about, not the Prince state, because British is conducting only in the British occupied region. Okay, there are 600 or more than that princely state were existed. So I'm not talking about the princely state, I am talking about British occupied region. Okay, The most dominant was the Brahmin, and then the Jato, and then Rajput. Okay, so this is the figure. So the last time that India's entire population was counted by the caste was the 1931, as I have said. And since then, after independence, the government, okay, decided not to conduct the caste census except the SC and ST, as I have said. Okay, now, so you can understand this figure. So the census, when you look at, as I have said, the census conducted by the Ministry of Home Affairs, okay, and it is an union sub. It comes under union sub. But some state have done the caste, the census also. Okay, the caste enumerations. Recently, you might have heard that Bihar has conducted, or the Karnataka and Telangana. But the census is a union subject. You have to keep in mind. Okay? But there was an act. On the basis of that act, the caste enumeration can be done by the state also. So, according to the latest government data, when you look at, there are nearly 2,650 community in the OBC group, and there are 1,170 in the scheduled caste category, and 890 in the scheduled tribe list. Okay, in the central list, I am talking about the data revealed by the in. Okay, the state government maintain their own list of OBC, and that's why what I have said today, when you look at, the caste is more regional in character. Okay, different state having the different caste and community sometimes. While our independent analysis of a state OBC list showed over 3,651 community. So according to central list, how many OBCs community are there? 2650. But when you altogether added the state list of OBC, how many? 3651 such category exists. So a state list is separate, central list is separate. In the central government job or the public employment, the government is giving reservation based on the central list, and states are giving reservation based on their own. Okay. Now, when you look at what the Mr. Vaishnav when announced, they said the union government is considering codifying a list of caste and subcaste to ensure the number of caste is not as unwidely as it was in 2011 SEC, socioeconomic caste census. So the first and the foremost questions arises in our mind: which list has been included during the census? Whether the central list on the basis of which the caste enumeration done by the government, or the state list also included. This is the question. Okay. But the government is what the government highlighting, we won't do such kind of blunder what did in 2000. Now, the next census would be conducted in a digital mode. According to the report, the government is now going to conduct the census, the next census in the digital mode for the first time. And other column with a drop down code directory containing the names of the caste will be likely used. So there may be in questionnaire, there is a category of the caste which is mentioned, which is called as a the column which is given in a drop down. So if you click, there are various list of the caste is enumerated, and you pick your caste. Okay, so in the coming census, the government done this through the digital mode. Okay, so now over which the government is now pursuing the training and looking at that. Now, as I have said that recently few states has also conducted the caste census, and recently Bihar is in news, and Karnataka and Telangana also in news. So Bihar, Karnataka, Telangana government had drawn up the list of the caste. Okay, and when you look at, for instance, the Bihar, 214 entries in the list of the caste, and 215th is the outside Bihar, the caste which is there. Okay, So 214 entries of the caste in the Bihar caste census list has been enumerated. In Karnataka had over 1003. While in Telangana, when you look at, over 200 caste has been okay, enumerated in the list. Okay, and all three states use their respective state list, not the central list, to conduct the caste census or the subcaste or community to arrive at the list for the enumeration. So this 214 and 1300 and 200 is based on the state list, not on the central list. Now, when these states has conducted the survey, the Bihar, when it started conducted the survey, they announced the survey in 2021. They started submitted the report in November 2023, and in this survey they accommodate 13.07 crore population. Okay. Telangana started census in 2024 December and submitted in February 2025, and almost they taken the survey of 3.54 crore population. Okay, almost 93% population has been included during. Now, when you look at Karnataka, started in 2015, it will take almost 10 years to conduct the to publish the report, and the report came in 2024, and in which 5.98 crore population has been individual has been surveyed. Okay, almost 95% of the population of Karnataka has been surveyed this census. Okay, so this was the survey done by. Now, when you look at the Bihar, okay, contrary to the expected share of 20%, the upper caste in Bihar share, according to the recent census, okay, stood 15.52%. So, out of total population, the upper caste in Bihar is, according to this caste census of the Bihar, 15.52% share. Okay. Now, the backward and extremely backward cumulatively comprise 63.13%. So, which community is more in number in Bihar? The backward and extremely backward. Okay. While the scheduled caste is around 19.65%, according to the recent caste census of Bihar. Now, Karnataka, when you look at, report revealed that they are less than 26% of the state population with Vokaligas. Because why the Karnataka has conducted to identify how many Vokaligas are there? Because there is a demand of the reservation by the community. Okay, at 12.2%, and the Veeraseva Lingayat community are 13.6%. The OBC constitutes 69.6% of the state population, while the SC and STs, the scheduled caste and scheduled tribe community, okay, contain 18.27 and 7.15% out of the total population. And when you come to Telangana, the authority has prepared 57 questions, and according to the survey of 3.54 crore people in Telangana, which is almost 96.9% of the total population surveyed during the caste census in Telangana, okay, revealed 56.33% of the population come under the backward classes, while the SCs and STs account for 17.43% and 10.45% of the state's population. And the total Muslim population is 12.56%. So these state has, okay, done a great job. They pursued the census and revealed the data. Okay, now when you look at next, okay, but in spite of this good work, some critics has opined their view. What are the criticism of this census? The major criticism in Bihar and Karnataka, when you look at, one of the criticism was the survey did not cover all the population. Okay, and both the Karnataka and Telangana survey have been questioned for their estimates of the backward classes population with accusation of an undercount. There are various, okay, OBCs were undercount. So this is the major criticism. And that raised various questions. What are the questions which has been kept in mind? What are the legal provision govern the inclusion of the caste census at present? Is there any legal provision behind this caste census? We have to find out. Now, which list of OBC is used? Because there is a central list which is separate and a state having their own list. So again, there is a confusion in the recent um, census. What kind of list used by the government? Not revealed until now by the government. Now, how much preparation required prior to the census? Because the census is going to conduct in a digital mode first of all. So we have to prepare that also. We have to prepare a questionnaire as well as software. Okay, as you know, in India, still there is a digital divide. There are various other people who understand the digital things. Okay, that is another. What challenges is poses during collection of data and after publication of report, because some moral ethical questions is associated with this. There may be a issue of reservation again created after the revealing of the data, the new data when came. Okay, there were various community asked for reservation. Okay, and there may be a finding out where the community are well off. Okay, and government will plan in future to uh, delisting that community from the reservation benefit. So that may create a political problem. So okay, so what are the legal requirement for the caste enumeration? Is there any requirement at early level to amend the law that is known as the this Caste Act, or sorry, Census Act? So the first, as I have said, when you look at what are the legal requirement for the caste enumeration, try to okay. So to include the caste enumeration at the early level, is there requirement of the amendment of the Census Act 1958? Okay, so यहाँ लिखा doesn't mean. So at early level, at the level of collecting the data, there is no need, okay, to amend the law. So there is no hurry to amend the law. Try to understand. The Registrar General and the Census Commissioner, okay, in the Ministry of Home Affairs, is already empowered under the existing law to design the census pro forma. Okay, they can create a pro forma of the census. They had the all rights under this act, so there is no need at the early level to try to understand. Okay, and the standardized form used during the house listing and population enumeration phase to collect information from household and individuals respect. What is required for the RGNCC to create a questionnaire new which is related to the caste, and they have to create the caste list within the forma, but they are okay authorized to conduct the census, means to collect the data. Okay, try to understand. So in at early level there is no need to, of amendment. Now when you look at okay, the next, which list will be used for the SC and ST enumeration? As I have said, for SC and ST, there is a single list which is published by the government. Okay, so the government of India. So there is no confusion regarding SC and ST. This list is used of the central list is used for the enumeration of the SCs and STs. Okay, under the Constitution, a Scheduled Caste Order 1950 and the Constitution Scheduled Tribe Order 19. Okay, on the basis of that, there is an official list which is published by the central government. So that list is this list currently comprising 1170 caste under the SC and 890 community under the ST are periodically updated through the amendments passed by the parliament. So that list will be used. But there is a problem in case of the OBC, because as I have said, the center having their own list and state having their own. So what is the major problem here? For OBC, there is no single consolidated list. Okay, central list maintained by the National Commission for Backward Classes. This commission has been created, okay, and they compile the data and used for reservation in the central government job and educational institution. While separately, each state maintains its own OBC list, which often differ from the central list, because already I had discussed with you, okay, and in many cases include many more communities. So according to the state list, more than 3,600 OBCs are there, but according to 2,650 communities are under the central list. So the key decision now before the government is whether to rely solely on the central list, which currently include 2,650, or to merge it with the various state lists, thereby significantly expanding the scope of enumeration. Either way, the choice is likely to be politically sensitive, because if the government is denying to add this, the state will raise the question. If they add, the process will be cumbersome and time taking, so they have to prepare that. Okay, try to understand. So this is one issues with the government, so let's wait for that. Now when you look at another aspect, how much time it will take to conduct the census, because already the census has been postponed since long, okay, due to COVID-19 pandemic. It since 2021 to 2025, okay, this is the month of May. So if the government started the procedure, it will take minimum 6 months time. Why? Because there is a standard procedure. First of all, the central government has to issue the notification in the gazette, official gazette. The government has to publish the notification. And once the government publish the notification, at the next stage followed by the similar notification from all the state government. So all the state has to publish the notification. So this is the first step, then this is the second. When all the state also publish the notification, then the pro forma for the house listing and population enumeration phase will have to be formally notified. This is the third stage. So according to my opinion, it will take time, at least 5 to 6 months. Okay, in all this procedure or processes. Okay, so it's a cumbersome task. Few people has raised the question, okay, against the caste census. What are the question or argument against the caste census? The various political expert and sociologists stated that it may create socially what it may divide the society based on the caste, because the caste is very important, okay, aspects as I have said. Okay, so what I have said that according to the political experts, sociologists, what they believe that the caste enumerations may create division in the society. Okay, because as I have said right now, okay, there are various schemes which has been designed, or the policies has been designed, okay, by the government to appease a particular caste or community. So maybe such kind of a questions may create division within the society. Okay, at administrative level, there is maybe problems which may create, because the caste become the criteria. Okay, or the politics, the caste politics may increase, which create the administrative problems. specifically at regional scales, okay, where a particular caste dominate, they may create a problems in the bureaucratic structure. Now, it may fuel the increased reservations demand. Already, the Karnataka, based on the this reports, they try to raise the question to give 51% reservation to the other backward classes. Okay, but as you know, according to Indra Shawni case, okay, the 50% cap has been okay there. Not more than 50% reservations can be given, except the economically weaker sections. Okay, so now it may create certain problem. What is the moral implications? The ethical concerns are also there. What are the ethical concerns are there? Because of the caste revelations, okay, within the society, okay, what there may be a great divide created between the underserved and served, haves and have nots. Okay, so it may create a gap because the absolute figure has been designed, so it may raise ethical concerns also. So various people are saying that this is not, or it should not be allowed. Okay, but as I have said earlier, what, why it is required? Okay, when you look at broadly, it is required, it must be allowed. Okay, but what are the challenges in front of the government? As I have said, the government has to prepare a digital infrastructure as well as the performa, and which list has been included. So now the government having both the political as well as procedural challenges. Okay, so on the ground, enumerator may face difficulty with the new technology because digitally the census is going to conduct, but this can be addressed by proper training. So there is no need of hurry. If we adopt a new technology, we have to give the proper training to the personnel, those who will conduct the census, and the rigorous balloting is required. At the pilot basis, they have to conduct the census first, so they understand the glitches. Okay, the suggestions is given. However, a far bigger concern is environment in which the census is conducted. What we often overlook is this census is happening in era of rampant misinformation which is spread through social media. So those who are collecting and compiling data, they had to maintain this also, this era of digital era in which the misinformation has been spread, okay, very fast through different platforms like WhatsApp or Facebook or Instagram. Okay, so this is another challenge in front of the personnels, those who are collecting, because if the misinformation in the society has been spreaded, that may create administrative problems, okay, that may raise a political issues. Now, when you look at the political front, what are the major challenges faced by the government? The first decision is which list to use for the OBC enumeration. As I have said, that is the problem. But far more consequential challenge will emerge after the data published, because it may raise the reservations issues. As I have said, it may creates more caste based politics in India. So it may be certain challenges where the government has to look into, and the upcoming census will offer the first accurate estimate of India's caste composition in nearly a century. Okay, so what I have said, that still the government having the various challenges. Okay, but apart from these challenges, as I have said, there is a social imperative, there is a legal imperative, constitutional imperative, as well as moral imperative or needs conduct. So until now, okay, I had discussed the different dimensions of the caste census. Now I'm going to wind up my sessions today. Thank you very much.